amount of times I've had to try and like fix this lighting is actually insane, and it's still not good. I still have a reflection in my glasses. Sometimes I really hate wearing glasses, you know? Can't wait to get content. Hi, what is up? Welcome back to my channel, and sorry for the hiatus. I haven't been filming because I don't like filming on my phone, because that's what I filmed on for my last video. My laptop doesn't work. I had to edit my videos on my phone, and iMovie takes up a lot of space, and I don't have the space to have the video and iMovie on my phone and be able to edit it and whatnot and upload it onto YouTube. While I was in Kenya, my uncle gave me an iPad, so now that's what I'm filming on, and then that's what I'm going to be editing my videos on, because it has a lot of space on it, which I'm really thankful for. So yeah, if you can tell from the title, yes, I went to Africa. I went to Kenya because I am Kenyan American. My mom is Kenyan and my dad is from Ohio. So we try to go as often as we can, but tickets are really, really expensive. Since they're expensive, you know, you don't want to stay for like 2 days or something, because like it takes like almost a whole day to get there, because you know you have to stop in Europe. You can't just fly straight. So this is the story on like what happened and whatnot. And yeah, so first things first, the first time that I went to Kenya, I was like 8. We went in 2010 in December. So, you know, I got my first passport then. No, I had a passport before that, but my passport then, right? Passports in the US, if you're under, was it 16, I think? Then your passport lasts 5 years, but if you're 16 and above, it lasts 10. My passport was like expiring or something. I don't even know. I can't remember. It was like expiring that year or something. So we went, and then somehow between then and now, I lost the passport. So we had to go get a new one, because you know you need a passport to leave and enter the country. Because I live in Savannah, Georgia, and the closest passport agency is Atlanta. So we had to drive to Atlanta. But we drive to Atlanta really often because, you know, I grew up there. So most of my family members are there and stuff like that. So we drove up there, and then when we got up there, you know, this was like close to December time, it was snowing. And we haven't seen snow in like a really long time. Not a really long time, but I moved down to Savannah when I was in 8th grade, and now I'm in 10th. So it's been about like 2-3 years. So it was a really interesting experience. Like, it was basically blizzarding there. We weren't like used to that. So, and like in downtown, you have to walk. You have to go park somewhere, and sometimes you have to walk pretty far. So like we walked like half a mile to get to the actual building from where we parked. So we were walking through the snow. Obviously we weren't expecting the snow. We were just expecting cold weather, so we weren't really dressed for snow. We went to the passport agency. Like, we went to go get the passports, and then my mom was like, oh, we don't need to get passport pictures before we go, because I heard that you can just get them done there. We go there, they're like, all right, so you have your passport pictures? And my mom was like, no, I thought that you could take them here. And he's like, no, you have to go to the CVS across the street to go get them done. Mind you, we've been walking through snow. Our hair is wet, our clothes are wet. It's just crazy, right? So we have to walk all the way back downstairs, go across the street to CVS, and you know, in Atlanta, if you're used to living in Atlanta, they get black ice. So the roads and sidewalks, they get really, really hard and slippery to walk on. So we almost slipped a couple times, but it was fine. But I think that just happens in Georgia, like everywhere. But we went and got our pictures done, and then we went back across the street to get the passports made, and then it didn't take that long. It only took like less than an hour. So we got the passports, and we had to walk back, and then we were driving back. This is where stuff gets crazy. Basically, when we were on our way back, we had reached like 16, I think, I-16, and it started raining. And raining. And raining. It was like pouring down rain, and obviously, you know, 16 isn't that developed towards like in the middle, because it's pretty much the middle of nowhere. If you exit somewhere, you have to drive at least 20 minutes out to actually get to that city. So like, it floods easily. So what happens when it floods? You hydroplane, right? And see, here's the thing. My mom has an SUV. She has a Nissan Xterra, and it's pretty high risen, so like driving through water isn't really like a big deal for her. But since our car is pretty old, kind of, it's like a 2003, I think, or 2004. The car mechanics say that it's not the best to take up to Atlanta all the way there because our brakes were wearing out. So my mom usually just gets a rental from where she works. Something was wrong with the lights, so we couldn't see. And our trip was a day trip, so we went there and then we came back. So by the time we were like on 16, you know, it was pretty dark outside. And the lights weren't working properly, so we couldn't really see in front of us. And because it was flooding so much and my mom couldn't tell where the water was, we kept on hydroplaning. So we got to this point where she started hydroplaning and she's just trying to get back on the road. She can't see where the road is. So we're just swerving back and forth. And I can kind of see right, like if you look right in front of the car, I can see the, you know, the lines on the side of the road that like tell you like if you're falling asleep, you're going off of the road. I felt that and I heard that. So I just saw us like going over that line and I saw the median wall and we were really close to hitting the median wall. Mind you, my mom, I guess like she was out of her mind at the moment. So she was still going like 70 miles an hour while doing this. So I told her to just to just stop the car because, you know, it's not safe. So while we're like on that line, she slams on the brakes and like we just stop and we just sit there for a second and we're like, okay, let's collect ourselves, let's chill out. And basically I was completely a nervous wreck for the rest of the ride because when we stopped, we hadn't even reached like exit 40 and we live on exit 155. And if you don't know how exits work, exits are based on the mile from where the interstate starts or ends. It was hard, but basically we got home safely. We didn't crash or anything. And then my mom turned in the car the next day when she went back to work. Everything was okay. Everything was fine. A week later is when we were going. The total people that were going on the trip was me, my mom, my sister, and her daughter, which is my niece. We drove using her Mercedes, like she has an older car. So we drove taking her car up there to Atlanta because, of course, flying out of Atlanta is a lot cheaper than flying out of Savannah because even though we live really close to the airport, to the international airport, you'll still have to fly through Atlanta. So we drove to Atlanta and we were going to drop off the car at my uncle's house who lives there, and he was going to drive us to the airport. So he drove us to the airport, everything's all fine, we're all excited, you know, like I finally get to see my brother after a really long time. I get to see a lot of my uncles and aunts after a really long time. We get to the airport, very long line. We don't know why. All the screens are off. We don't know why. We look around, we hear people, you know, like the lines are so long that you can't even tell what the line is for anymore. All of the screens are off. Like it seems a bit darker, but I think, oh, maybe they turned off the lights, you know, so that way they can conserve energy because there's a lot of windows. Nope, your girl thought wrong. The power went out. A construction company cut the power line 2 hours prior before we came. So we didn't know any of this. Here's the best part. Obviously, because the power went out, the Wi-Fi goes out, right? Doesn't matter. We're still in America. We can use our, you know, phones or whatever, right? We can use our data. Ha, wrong. That also cut out and blocks out the signal for your cell phone service. So no one could use their phone. No one can contact anyone unless you have the stronger than Verizon, I'm talking. So we're just sitting and sitting. People are in line for TSA even though there is no one at TSA. People are in line to check in their luggage even though they can't. Their luggage can't even be checked in because there is no computer. The backup system's completely gone because the cutting of the power line also caused an explosion in the power box, which knocked out the system. the backup system. Cut out the main system and the backup system. How does that happen? How do you let something happen? How do you let something like that happen? Honestly, please. You are the busiest airport in the world, and somehow an explosion knocks out your main system and your backup system. Don't you need a backup system? Get good, guys. Anyway, so we were sitting there. We got there at like 2 o'clock, so it happened at 12, right? So we sit there, and we sit there. Finally, we get through, and they check our tickets or whatever. I don't know. And then we get in line for TSA. We walk for the line for TSA. It's like, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, it's pretty big. And we were in the Maynard section now because they built a new international portion. We had to walk all the way back and back to go to the end of the line. The end of the line is now where people are checking in their luggage. Do you see where I'm coming from? People are like sitting on their luggage at this point. They're just waiting it out. It's like, when people say that they camp out for concerts and, they have the tents and everything and they're sitting like in little groups with their friends and whatnot outside of the arena. That's what it looked like. That's what it felt like. We didn't know when the power was coming on. No one was telling us anything. We couldn't check the news. My phone was dying. My phone was at like 14% because I don't know what happened. I guess I was like, well, I can just charge it when I get to the airport or something. Like, check-in isn't going to take that long. Because I've flown a lot of planes in my life, and checking in doesn't take that long. Even when you're flying internationally. Like, you just go through, TSA. TSA is pretty fast in America and at that airport. So, we sit there. My mom's phone ends up dying. My sister's phone is almost dying. We don't have any of the portable power banks or anything. We are just sitting here like sitting ducks, waiting for something to happen. And then I think it was about 11 o'clock that night, the power came back on. But we didn't know that was just a backup system. That was just like a little something to get the thing started or whatever. So while we were waiting, our flight was for 5 o'clock, I think. It got delayed to 7. We're like, okay, at least, because, some people's flights, they were just getting flat out canceled. So we're like, okay, at least there's some hope. 7 o'clock rolls around. Gets delayed to 9. We're like, okay, yeah, whatever. 9 comes around. Then they just flat out cancel it. And we're like, okay, great, fantastic, fan-freaking-tastic. But you see, here's the issue, right? You think oh, well, you can just go a couple days later or the next day or something. Here's the thing. The whole reason that we were going to Kenya was because my brother was graduating college. His graduation, which would be the day that we got there. The morning that we would get to Kenya, later that day was his graduation. We were supposed to get to Kenya at 1 o'clock in the morning, and his graduation would be at 11 or something. Moral of the story, kids, like my sister was saying, don't book a flight so close to the event. Okay. The only reason why we did that is because the tickets were so much cheaper that way. But anyway, the lights come back on. And then, they're trying to get the workers are trying to get everything together. Everyone's so confused. Again, they haven't been announcing anything. Even the workers, they've just been sitting there with us, telling us oh, I don't know. And then for some of the airlines, like Qatar Airlines, they would put they wrote on a piece of paper saying, call this, because, their flights got canceled. So they were call this number so you can talk to them or whatever. The lines weren't working. Really? So we get in line, and then, we're waiting. We even making friends with people in line. I met this guy that is Irish born, but lives in Amsterdam. And he's, he's talking to us. Wow, this is great. This is amazing. So, we're all talking and whatnot, and then our line, we get close to line. We're the third people out. Me and my mom. My sister's sitting down at this point. She's just charging her phone. She's using my charger. And then the guy that's helping our line, he picks up his bag and he's like, you know what? I'm tired. And then he leaves. He just ups and leaves in the middle of chaos. Busiest airport in the world, I'm telling you guys. You would think. But anyway, we're complaining and whatnot, and we finally got our flight. They finally were trying to make our flights, like fix our flights and whatnot. And then they tell us that the soonest that they can fly us out is Wednesday. What day were we there? Sunday. What day was the graduation? Tuesday. So what day will we be getting there? Wednesday. If you speak German, Mittwoch. Nicht Sonntag. Mittwoch. Graduation was Dienstag. But we're gonna get there Mittwoch. I didn't ask for this, okay? I felt so bad. Like, I got a dress and everything. I was so ready to represent my brother and be like, yeah, you go. And then we find out that we're flying out on Wednesday, which means we would get there Thursday. We go and we stay with my uncle. He's like, yeah, you can stay with us. So we stay with him for the next 3 days, and then we go back to the airport. Everything is fine. We're able to fly out, and we fly out and we go to Amsterdam. And Amsterdam was really cool because when I went the first time in 2010, we flew through Paris, and then on the way back, we flew through Amsterdam. So this time I went to Amsterdam first. We were supposed to fly back through Amsterdam, but then, you'll find out later in the story. So we get to Kenya. Everything's all great. I see a bunch of people, but I'm kind of overwhelmed. Some of the people that were there, I haven't seen in a while. So we were staying in his cottage, so we drove back. His driver drove us back. And then we went, and then I just fell asleep in the car. So when I woke up to go to the cottage, I was dead. I was completely dead. I just went to bed. But before we move on any further in the story, here's the thing. In Kenya, there's a lot of mosquitoes. They don't have proper season. They don't have winter and summer because it's kind of warm throughout the year. So they have spring and fall. They don't really consider summer and winter to be seasons for them because it doesn't get really cold and it doesn't get really hot. It's just it's either it's hot or it's warm, basically. So because there's a lot of mosquitoes, malaria is a high-risk area, especially in Nairobi, which is where we were. So I had to take this malaria medication so that way it would prevent me from getting it. So me and my niece had to take it, but my mom wasn't taking it because she thought that she'd be fine, and my sister wasn't taking it because she thought that she would be fine because my sister was born there too. It was just me and my niece. We were born in the U.S. So they gave my niece a different, there was 11 different medications that you can take, but my niece got something different than I did. When I looked up my medication name, I got antibiotics. Why would your doctor give you antibiotics for a disease that you don't even have? I don't understand. But here's what happened. What had happened was, you're supposed to take it 2 days before you get there. So I started taking it on Friday because I wanted to be safe. So I started taking it. Obviously, we got delayed, so I was taking it for a week before we left. When we got there, I think it was that day, that next morning, I started feeling sick. Basically, the medication was giving me side effects of malaria. Again, a disease that I don't even have.
Hi, Editor Carrie here. I just wanted to point out that I actually did have malaria. It wasn't side effects of the medication. Alright, back to the story time.
So basically the effects is you have fever, you get chills, and you feel hot at the same time, and just stuff like that. And then you could feel nauseous, and you'll feel really fatigued. So I slept a lot, and you'll feel really confused. My uncle and my aunt, they were coming that day because they weren't there. They were on a trip. That day, I woke up and I felt really, really hot, but I felt cold at the same time, and it was the weirdest feeling of my life. My mom said that I had a really high fever and whatnot. So I felt really sick and I felt really confused. And I felt like crying, honestly, because like whenever I feel really bad, I feel like really emotional. So I was like, and I was really tired, so I just went back to sleep. And then I ended up waking, and you know, I was jet lagged, so I woke up at 1 at like during the day. And then my mom was like, hey, your aunt and uncle are here, come see them or whatever. And I was like, I'm not feeling well, let me sleep for a little bit. So then I slept until 2. And then my mom came back and she's like, hey, you slept for a bit, come meet them. And I was like, okay, I'll get up. But I was like really confused and whatnot. So basically what happened is that I dreamt that I fell back asleep, woke up, got up and like got dressed and then went and saw them. And then I was like, okay, again, I'm not feeling well, so I'm going to go back to the cottage. I'm going to go sleep. When I got back to the cottage, I slept in my dream and then I woke up again at like 5. And I was under the impression, I was really confused, so I was under the impression that I actually went to go see them. So I was like, okay, well, I can go back to sleep then. So I go back to sleep, and my mom wakes me up again like an hour later, and she's like, hey, you seriously need to come and see them, like, you're being rude now. And I'm like, but I already went to go see them. Like, I was really confused. She's like, no, you haven't. The next couple of days, I just wasn't sleeping properly, and I kept on waking up in the middle of the night, feeling like I was gonna throw up, but then also feeling like really, really hot and really cold. Don't get malaria, basically. That's what I told all my friends. Don't get malaria. And make sure that you check the medication that your doctor gives you, because like I said, there are 11 different medications that you can get, but there's only one antibiotic. And I got the antibiotics, which was really weird. All in all, the trip was really cool. I got to go to Masai Mara, or not Masai Mara, I went to the national park, so I got to see like lions and whatnot and zebras and like in real life. And in the beginning of the video, you'll have seen a couple of those videos that I took.
So big, oh my god. Look, man. Wow, that's massive. Doesn't is coming, this is a game plan.
And I just had a lot of fun. Our thing got pushed back a couple days. We were supposed to leave like on the 28th, and we were supposed to arrive on like the 18th, and we were supposed to leave on the 28th. But because we arrived on the 21st and we wanted to get some, and they weren't refunding us, we wanted to extend our trip. But the latest that they could extend it to is the 1st. I was supposed to go back to school on the 3rd, which means I would get back to the US on the 2nd, which means I would have basically no time to get myself back into the rhythm of the US, because Kenya is 8 hours ahead of where I live. So yeah, that happened. We go to check in, and guess what they tell us? Our flights do not exist. We're like, you're joking, right? No, they're not joking. Our flights don't exist. So they have to quickly, get our flights together. Took them 5 minutes or whatever, but they booked new flights for us. But now, me and my sister and my mom were all sitting like on different areas on the plane. But me and my mom ended up being together, and me and my sister and my niece ended up being together, so everything was fine. And then we get to Johannesburg. Again, we're flying through Johannesburg now, right? Johannesburg, if you do not know, here's a little geography lesson. Johannesburg is in South Africa. South Africa is at the bottom of the whole continent of Africa. I would be going to Atlanta, which is the capital of the state of Georgia. South Africa is pretty much closer to Antarctica than Atlanta is, because you have the whole of South America to go through. So you have to fly up and then out to get back to Atlanta. So how long would our flight end up having to be? 17 hours. 17 freaking hours. Yes, I survived. We get to Johannesburg, and our layover time 10 hours. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, not 9, but 10 hours. So we're like, okay, all right, bet. So we go to try to check in, and they're like, oh, you can only check in 3 hours prior to the flight. So we're like, who are you? Like, what is this? Who made these rules? They're like, okay, let's at least get some food, because we didn't eat on the plane because, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling hungry. I was just really tired. So we go to try and check in. They tell us we can't go through they tell us that we can't go to get food. We can't go to the food court unless we've checked in. Unless we have our boarding passes. But recall, we can't get our boarding passes until 3 hours before the flight. So how long do we have to wait? 7 freaking hours! 7 hours. I'm sorry I'm so heated, but this was just so annoying at the time. 7 hours. We would have to wait 7 hours to eat food, even though we didn't eat on the 2-3 hour flight from Nairobi to Johannesburg. I didn't ask for this, honestly. None of us asked for this. I don't know who made these rules up. They really didn't think this through. We go and sit in their uncomfortable seating area, and we try and sleep, and we got some sleep, but it was pretty uncomfortable. These people in South Africa, they are so unprofessional. We got this person, this worker, singing Titanium by Sia over there with shades on, and he's dancing and he's yelling, and people are trying to sleep. Even a lady with a sleeping child was like, can you please be quiet? My child is trying to sleep. And I'm like, this is so unprofessional. This is so sad. I don't know who hired these people. I don't know what kind of worker policies they have here. But yeah, so we finally get our tickets, right? Or we tried to get our boarding passes. When we found out that we were going to be flying through Johannesburg, we were already in Atlanta. We can't drive back to Savannah because we don't have gas for that. So we're like, okay, cool. Delta didn't tell us that we needed anything, or there's certain policies that they have that we need to abide to. So we go to try and check in. They tell us me and my niece can't go through because 1, we don't have our birth certificate on us, and 2, we don't have a letter of consent from our father saying that we could travel through Johannesburg. Because guess what? Newsflash, Delta didn't remember to tell us that you need the child's birth certificate and a letter of consent from the father, or if the father is dead, the death certificate of the father, so that way that child is not being child trafficked. I don't even know if that's how you would say it. Basically, they've set this policy in place to prevent child trafficking, and we didn't know this, so they had to call the U.S. passport agency to try to see if they could let us through, and they were like, yes, that was a mistake on our part. We didn't let them know, let them through. So we ended up getting through. So me and my niece, we all almost got stuck in South Africa with this titanium singing person over there because we didn't know about their policies. No one asked for this. So basically, we finally got to go, and we got some food, and then we went to the airplane, and we were flying out Delta, so we were sleeping, or at least we got on the flight, and I basically slept the entire flight. I was sitting between these two guys. There's this one guy who was going with his wife for their friend's wedding, and then there was this other older man who's his wife was sitting somewhere over there, diagonal to him. They were pretty nice. And the guy to my right, I was sitting in the middle. The guy to my right, he was really nice because he saw that I was asleep. So when they're handing out water bottles, he got me one. He was like, hey, you were asleep, so I got you a water bottle. And I was like, wow, thank you. You're so kind, too kind. So 17 hours later, we get back to the U.S. and everything's fine. Our drive back is fine. Go on my Twitter feed, and I follow the school district on Twitter. Guess what I see? School has been canceled for Wednesday. Why? Because it's supposed to snow in Savannah, Georgia. On the coast of Georgia, it's supposed to snow. We leave at like 6 or like 4 or something. And then we go, and then we get back, and then we see that, you know, school is canceled, and then we find out the next day that school's canceled for the rest of the week, and then we find out that school's canceled for the next week then. So we were out for like a week and a half. And then we finally started back, and life was great. And I got to get back onto US time. And yeah, so this has been a really long video. It's already at 34 minutes, and it's probably going to be super long, but it was a long story. Very sorry for that. But I just wanted to tell that because I wanted to share my experience on going, and all in all, in conclusion, I had a lot of fun. Like I said before, it was great seeing my relatives again, and I was really happy to be there, and honestly, I want to move back there. Except that malaria. We got some beef, honestly. Well, thanks again for watching my video, and I'm going to be trying to post more often, like film videos every weekend and then post them within that weekend. So, yeah. So, thanks so much for watching. Leave some feedback in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye!